All right, so Dunk, the CSM summit is going to be in 2 weeks now. So have you started to really make any preparation towards it? Have you sat down and written any lists? What's going through your mind at this point?
Well, it's a bit of a whirlwind right now from all the announcements that have been made public. So definitely we have lists. When I talk to different people, all the different ways from discords and emails and eve mails and all that stuff. There's definitely a list of a huge amount of little things people would like. Some of those things we've been able to communicate to the CSM right now, but I think this summit is really going to be a lot of it consumed with one, talking about kind of the new player retention, and two, the kind of chaos era changes, which between what's been announced with Blackout and then the Sino changes, I think will be big discussion topics when we get there. So I think that might squeeze out some of the other things that need to be talked about.
If you don't mind me asking there, how kind of tied in to these Chaos Era changes are the CSM? Like, are you guys finding out about these things and then CCPs redrafting them with that feedback in mind, or is it just boom, boom, boom?
Well, I really can't comment on a lot of the details of exactly when we told, but I will say that you can go look at the little weekly updates I put up that are approved by CCP for me to put up, and you can read into those what you feel about how much notice the CSM was given about some of these changes.
So are there any particular sessions that you or the rest of the CSM have pushed for in this summit? I know the CSM used to get a decent amount of autonomy there.
Yeah, I think we definitely there's things we're asking for. I don't know how much it's going to get make it onto the agenda. We're definitely going to have some talks about things like the ESI, how that works. There's a lot of discussion about that, about making it more functional, and obviously what should and shouldn't be in it. Um, the things that I think most of the CSM is interested in are things like how the solve system works, the impact of time zone tanking, sino jammers, things like that really can lead to a lot of what people might see as stagnation in the game. And so I think that's definitely something that I'm interested in. I know other CSM members are interested in having a good amount of time talking about. Whether that fits into what CCP really has on their agenda and their roadmap, I don't know. And then faction warfare has been brought up a lot. Again, I don't know how much room there is between kind of the chaos work and then the new player work to fit in doing something for faction warfare. But those are the kind of things that to me seem like affect a large number of people. And if you're going to shake up the game in a more meaningful, directed way, those are the kind of things I'd like to talk about.
Can you give an example at all of some of the feedback that you want to give to CCP, or some areas of the game that you think really need to be focused on that aren't currently being?
Well, as an example, there's a lot of talk about this thing, the fog of war and the perfect intel problem. And I've written a little bit about that in some of my updates about my feelings in it. And I think I made a tweet something to the effect of like, you can make war as foggy as you want to, but if there's nothing for people to go to war over, it doesn't matter. And so one of the important things to me is if we want to shake up things in nullsec and some of the stagnation that people seem to feel is going on, then we have to either find a way to motivate war, both on it's worthwhile fighting and doing all that work to go fight a war, and it's worthwhile defending. So, we just watched one group basically completely walk away from multiple regions and not fight a war. Um, why? Because they didn't have a reason to defend it. They felt, well, we can just move somewhere else. And so I think that if you want war, then you have to give people reasons to go to war. And right now, wars are being, there's not a lot of great reasons to go to war other than I'm keeping my people entertained, like a gladiator um, arena. And so that to me is a kind of address the root issue here, which is people aren't going to war the way they have in the past. That's what I'd like to talk about. I don't know if we're going to get that option. A lot of the changes that have been coming out, I view are kind of very minimal effort with lots of unintended consequences and tend to treat a symptom and not a root issue. So my push will be is if people have a problem we want to solve, what's the root issue? Let's address that. Let's not address the symptoms. Is that making sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. I just didn't want to interrupt. Very interesting.
I mean, the issue for me is I can't not think like an engineer. I'm an engineer and I think about solving problems. And when I do that, I want to know what's the cause of this problem. And let's address that cause, not try and compensate for the symptoms that we see. And in the recent changes, it feels very much to me we're seeing kind of symptomatic fixes and not root cause fixes. And I think like with Blackout, like there's some immediate change in immediate metrics that people may have been like, hey, this has happened, that has happened. But I think very quickly the equilibrium is going to be restored and we're going to be back in the same situation for the most part that we were before Blackout happened. And that really doesn't address the issue that people had concerns about. So that's the kind of thing I hope we get into talk about.
It's actually something that I'd like to just kind of add a point to, actually, and that's that I feel right now as if CCP is trying to suppress basically the ISK faucets. All they're doing is suppressing the problem. They're not actually solving it. They're just lowering down the metrics which represent it. Is that kind of your opinion as well, or do you hold a different way of looking at things?
Well, I think it does have an effect, right? Blackout has an effect on lowering the amount of ISK and mining and all that stuff that people are doing. But if there's one thing Eve players are, it's adaptable and it's min max mentality. So people are going to find a way around any kind of roadblock that's been put up for them, and in many cases be even more effective because now they all put on the thinking hats. And the difficulty is it's not a group of 5 developers on the player side deciding how to adjust to these changes. It's 1,000 players, 2,000, 3,000 players all coming together trying to figure out and optimize around the situation that occurs. And the power of all that thinking, and all it takes is one person to have a miraculous breakthrough in their mind, and then suddenly it's distributed, and then everybody's doing it. And so I think if you don't think through the consequences, um, you run the risk of just creating a new faucet, a new loop. So I'm not saying that's exactly happening, but I do think it's a huge risk to these kind of act more, do less kind of philosophy that we're hearing out of CCP right now.
So let's think about some things that are a little lighter. Are you looking forwards to just going to Iceland and meeting up with your colleagues? You're not going to see much other than the inside of a hotel room, but
Oh, definitely. I think it's not going to be a vacation. I do know a significant number of the CSM members I've met in real life, but it'll be good, I think, to meet people in real life and be able to talk to them sitting in a room as opposed to chatting in Slacks and Discords because there's a certain impersonality or lack of humanness when in our electronic world as opposed to in our physical world. And I think it's much easier to kind of break through and have real communication and understanding and empathy and I understand and give and take when you're all just sitting in a room together as opposed to hey, I just came back from a meeting for 2 hours. I see somebody wrote something in a channel. I'm going to respond with my snarky response off the cuff, and then walk away for another hour, and then they respond, and you like it's not the same thing, right? And I think that being in person is going to be a powerful thing for the CSM to kind of come together and kind of settle out some of the differences that exist right now, and hopefully be more guided when we approach CCP about the things we're interested in talking about.
so what I wanted to ask you is, if people wanted to contact you and bring something up to bring up as a CSM member, how would they do that? What are the best ways to get in touch with you, Dinkle?
Well, I put up this website for my campaign called dunkdinkle.com. And if you go there, you'll find my Discord address that you can contact me there. You can find an actual email address that is, dunkdinkle@gmail.com that you can email me if you want. And you can always send me a note in game. So any of those ways work really well to get a hold of me. Probably in-game Eve mail is probably the worst because I only log in certain times of the day, but Discord and email is usually with me all. So I'm happy to talk with people. Usually on a daily basis, I hear from somebody about some concern, from the most trivial things in the world, like this is misspelled, to you need to revamp the entire mission system completely from scratch. So I'm happy to talk to people. I can't promise that anything you tell me will get changed, but I'll definitely be a voice and try and take everyone seriously.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we leave?
I think the only thing I'd like to say to everyone who hears this is, all of these changes that CCP is putting out there, they are listening carefully to what the community says. It may not always be obvious, but they do go into various discords, they go into Slacks, they go into Reddit and the Eve forums and Twitter, and they do hear what people are saying. They may not respond, and it may not be clear that they're listening. But if you want your voice heard, put it out there. And I posted a tweet about this. There's actually an in-game thing if you hit the escape menu where you can, did I have a good time playing Eve today? And they take that seriously as well. So I think if you're a player and you agree with the changes they're proposing, you should say it. If you disagree, you should say it. Eve is a game all about community, and CCP really understands that. So they do take it seriously. As they say, silence is acquiescence. So I encourage, if you play Eve and you like playing it, make your voice heard because people are looking and listening.